Egypt, sadly, first of all, we're talking about the largest Arab country, population over 100 million, probably 110, 115 today. Egypt also was the first modern Arab society and one of the first modern Muslim societies. So if you go to the history of modernity, you'll find that it was basically Egypt that was at the forefront of adopting modern Western technology since the 19th century, modernizing their education system, and so on. This is why Egypt, all the older generations know this. I don't know how much the younger generations know any of this, but Egypt was the leader, kind of considered to be the cultural America of the so-called Arab world, and actually a big part of the Muslim world. And this is why even a lot of the major ideologies in the Middle East and all of the Muslim world, which is a third of humanity, actually originated in Egypt. Let's say the Muslim Brotherhood, very famous movement. They started in Egypt, really. So Egypt is a major country in its historical and cultural way. And sadly, it's actually anti-Semitism is one of the worst in Egypt. I would say it's on a popular level, you will find it worse in Egypt than in Iran, despite that politically it's different.
Right. And just so people know, Egypt was the first Arab country to sign a peace treaty with Israel in 1978. So interesting.
True. I grew up there. It's really became a part of the fabric of Egyptian reality, a cornerstone of religious identity, national identity. And all of these countries, specifically in the Middle East, they have, as everybody knows, it's not the Middle East anymore, but it started in the Middle East. They have identity problems, right? Now the entire world have identity problems, but really the Middle East have been suffering for identity problems for a century, right? You know, are we Muslim? Are we Arab? Are we Egyptians? Kind of the same thing also among the Palestinians, right? All the people in the region, they have these identities. But you'll find that all of those identities, like they fight over everything, right? They are really antagonistic towards each other, but all of them agree on anti-Semitism, on the hostility towards Israel. I grew up with it. It was really part of, how I think about the world, how I think about myself in my childhood.
That was in the 90s, 80s, 90s?
That was in the 90s. Yeah, that was in the 90s. It got significantly worse in the early 2000s. So, because if you remember the early 2000s, you had the second Intifada, right? You had the 9/11, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. There were a lot of major politically inflammatory events. Also, the rise of Al Jazeera was also during that time.